Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson, and this is your wake-up call.
When a brown girl child is born, the earth shifts. The sun is at half-mast. The moon waits for her first cry. The ancestors set the table. The flowers turn red as blood. This is your land, continent daughter, with tree trunk legs and branches for arms. This is your soil, black and fertile as your eyes facing an apartheid Jim Crow current past memory. Some of us begin the removal of shackles at birth. We grow into the armor of struggle quickly. We brew courage in our tea, blend bravery into our Sunday dinners. Joanne Watson, you understand nation building is not a part-time job. This dedicated life is sometimes lonely, a vulnerable choice, but it is the only way you know how to operate. You are wired for the movement. In your black women bones, even when tired, still fighting, still organizing, still singing morning spirituals. You were born to lead, even in your own family, the eldest of 10 children born to Jefferson and Lestine. You made Damon, Nefertari, Stephen, Maya, her children always knew.
Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson. This is the day the Lord has made, and we do rejoice and we're glad in it. We certainly want to welcome our sponsor for these pre-general election shows, the Black Congress on Health Law, Economics, and Education, led by attorney Derek Humphreys, who's from Detroit, but who is a nationwide known attorney with principled clients and constituents. And we're going to have him introduce our special guest today, attorney Derek A. Humphreys.
Oh, thank you very much. The Honorable Joanne Watson. It's an honor to be here with you and to do now, I think it's our third show, and we're just grateful that you have provided this opportunity to BCHLE to talk about the issue of the day. And the issue of the day is Wake Up, Detroit.
Hey!
National. And with all our guests today, we're just so very honored that they are with us. And so if I could just read off and introduce them, Peter Higginbotham, okay, from Omega Psi Phi for Black Men Vote.
Q Psi Phi. Oh,
there you go.
Rob Robertson Jr., National Football League Players Association, and Quest Act Incorporated. Rob, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Wake up, Detroit.
Hey, wake up, Detroit.
There we go. He has that jacket on with that emblem, National Football League Players Association.
My.
All right, labor is in the house.
Hey. No offense, Peter, but the National Football League, the best fraternity of them all.
Football is in the house. I think we got some football players on the screen, too. Come on now.
There we go. Now, let's see. Is David Hardrick with us? David? Okay, David will be with us shortly as we move forward. We have, as we look here on the screen, we have Dennis Rogers. And Dennis Rogers, Dr. Dennis Rogers.
Come on, somebody.
All right.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Okay.
Wake up, Detroit. Wake up, world.
There he is, calling in from North Carolina. There we go. And we have Monique Edwards.
Good morning.
Esquire. Okay, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, all the way, and representing the Edwards Law Group. Now let's see, as we move forward, I think that we have everybody. Oh, Dorothy Jackson. Dorothy, there.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
Good morning.
And Dorothy, of course, is the National Director and the Policy Council for BCHLE, and the person who has the connections and is responsible for this wonderful array of talent being with us this morning, Ms. Watson.
Oh, we're so happy to have our sister, our JD, Dorothy R. Jackson, who is just a magnificent representative of BCHLE. Thank you for being here. And down to the seasons, to the election seasons, certainly Attorney Derek Humphreys, Attorney Dorothy Jackson, Dr. Dennis Rogers have been with us over the years, and we've done all we can to get our people really ramped up to vote in high numbers, unprecedented numbers, because our vote is our voice. And we're so happy to have this wonderful opportunity today to once again concentrate on getting out the vote. I want to ask if there is an order. Why don't we start with Peter K. Higginbotham, Omega Psi Phi.
And as we start out, if we would ask the panelists to follow a guideline that we have followed very successfully, and that your opening statement be no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, Detroit, and thank you all for having me. I am a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and I was asked, actually just a couple of days ago, what is the fraternity doing in terms of trying to get the vote out, and what will the Omega's efforts be? And I said, boy, that is something that we are actually very tuned in on, because our Grand Basileus has made it very clear that he wants all Omega men to be involved in this election and to help out, turn out the vote. And the effort is called voter registration, education, and mobilization. And that's what we're doing by the guidance of Dr. David Marion, who is our Grand Basileus.
Well,
we are looking to be involved in every way, whether it's early voting, whether it's trying to get ballots in, or whether we're going to be out there on actual election day and be ready to assist people, maybe carry some of those little chair bags and have some water and big umbrellas to help Big Mama and Uncle Fred stand out there in the heat or the rain or whatever. And we're going to try to get this job done.
All right now. Well said. All right, Omega Psi Phi, ready to be counted and to be responsible and accountable for this election, November 3rd, 2020. Let's hear from David Hardrick, Divine Nine, President of the Unity 9 Political Action Committee. Well, let's move to Rob Robertson, NFL Players Association. Rob Robertson.
Hey, and wake up, Detroit. Good morning again. So I'm here again as part of the NFLPA, but former players actually representing Quest Act. And Quest Act is our 501c3 in which we are athletes on a quest to answer the call, living a purpose-driven life and building our community. And what that is doing is we are absolutely targeting and really reaching out to our young people here in all the way from Washington, D.C. So we are in the D.C. metro area, really equipping and coaching and giving back to our youth. And so what does that do for the time that we're in today? When we always say knowledge is power, right? But it's really not powerful unless we apply the knowledge.
That's
right.
So
our goal is to simply, really talk to our young people about the importance of, not losing your power, the importance to, actually talk to the parents as well, that, hey, it is our time to get out and vote and to, make a difference. And I'll just say from the NFL, again, being a former player, I think everyone is very, very happy. Week one went off without a glitch, if you will, where they had the games played. You can see they have it small, but you can see in the end zone, just some of the impacts that the NFL has kind of drawn a line in the sand. And really, you see some of the guys wearing their T-shirts, some of the guys, really speaking up, using their platform and their voice to ask and appeal to everyone to get out and vote. So, again, happy to be here, and I'll pass it back to you, Joanne.
All right, thank you. Monique Edwards, Esquire, the Edwards Law Group, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Good morning, Detroit. Thank you for having me. I'm an hour behind you, so you 8 o'clock, I'm 7 o'clock. But yeah, but Dorothy, the power of Dorothy Jackson. So, yeah. So I am in the midst of dealing with, let's see, we've had 3 named hurricanes have just been unbelievable here. Louisiana is still a hot spot for the coronavirus. We may be at a plateau, but still increasing. And so what I'm doing through my law firm, in addition to teaching at the Southern University Law Center, I'm encouraging everybody to understand that these weather events, the fires that we're having now that are making their way here, the water situation where Flint, Michigan is just the tip of the iceberg. And so telling people that all of these things are happening and do impact our quality of life, because so many of our people suffer from asthma, have obesity, and all of these conditions that are factors in the virus. You have to vote, because otherwise your family is going to continue to be adversely impacted by the things that are happening and nobody wants to accept.
I appreciate that. Wow. You've given us a boatload to contemplate, my sister. Dennis Rogers, Dr. Dennis Rogers, part of the national campaign of VCHLE. Give us an update on what's happening nationally with VCHLE members.
Excellent. Well, again, with the support and leadership of Dorothy Jackson, Attorney Jackson, and Attorney Derek Humphreys, the outreach that we're seeing on this call and on calls before is occurring throughout the nation. And what that means is that the voices that we're hearing on the Zoom call that are replaying on Facebook are echoing throughout the nation and are inspiring others who are doing the work but may not know of the level of coordination that's occurring to be more inspired. For example, as the attorney was just saying, there's so many things attached to our quality of life. And as we watched the NFL football games, and I saw one head coach and he had Breonna Taylor's name across his mouth, that was exciting. Then to hear the settlement, then to hear that justice is still being sought, speaks to the connectivity of all of these efforts, and BCHLE is at the center of these connections.
There is a connectivity between everything that's happening in social justice around the world and around this nation, and certainly getting out the vote and helping people get engaged. And nobody knows that better than our sister, Attorney Dorothy R. Jackson. Talk to us about your work with the Divine Nine and your work on the ground, helping our people stand up and get ready to vote.
Well, what I do, I connect people. I meet people and I don't let them go. And some examples of that are Mr. Higginbotham, Mr. Robertson, Monique. Everybody. I see my job as to keep people together.
I love it.
And keep those who are workers working together for the good of our community.
Yes.
One message I'd like to give today is there are certain states that are key to this election. They're called swing states. So I'd like to say to the people on this call, Wake Up Detroit National Edition for this morning, that if you have relatives in Arizona, Michigan, Florida, Georgia, Minnesota, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, I want you to be sure to reach out to your relatives and make sure they're getting out to vote, they're getting their neighbors out to vote, that they have a plan for voting. But before that, make sure that they're registered. Make sure, like Pete Higginbotham said, you have people who are helping people who need help, even if they need help to file for an absentee ballot. Little things like that. Let's just pay attention to everything that we can. And that's what I try to do. I try to pay attention to people. And when I recognize a worker, I just met Rob Robertson 2 weeks ago on a Zoom call meeting. And here he is, ready to
I love it.
continue
Go
rolling
ahead.
up his sleeves and going to work.
Go ahead, Dorothy Jackson. That's the way it happens. And that's the way to do it. Nobody connects better than our sister, Dorothy Jackson. We are so blessed to know a great connector named Attorney Derek A. Humphreys, who's been connecting people from the time he was in Detroit working as an attorney, connecting all of the political and economic forces here. And certainly as a former counsel to the Congressional Black Caucus and a counsel to the National Black Doctors, National Black Nurses, National Police Officers, you have played a role in connecting, including the Divine Nine. What does it mean to you to have BCHLE helping to organize and strategize to get the vote out for 2020?
Well, thank you. Well, first, I stand on the shoulders of giants. And all those who you mentioned earlier in the city of Detroit, I also, while you were standing on one shoulder, I was standing on the other. And so that informs everything that the Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics does during the years since it was established, and in particular, this season. And this season lifts up the opportunity to participate in local and national elections in a way that we've never been involved in the past. And so as I look at our array of talent and our influencers from different parts of the country, the question occurs to me to ask each of you, how can we who are blessed with skills and opportunities and success in our chosen professions leverage and utilize our positions and status to influence those neighborhoods where we grew up, the neighborhoods where we live, the neighborhoods where we still go to and provide leadership, particularly to younger people? How can we influence voter registration, going to the polls on November 3rd to vote, or vote by mail prior to November 3rd? One of the questions that I have is, and I draw this from an article that I read, in terms of having polling spots, is it possible that, for instance, basketball arenas are used for athletic activities? Could they be used as voting centers? And so when basketball games are not being played, or other areas where sports activities and community, how do we increase the opportunities for our folk to vote? And so I'd like to, maybe Rob Robinson, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so great question, Dr. Humphreys. One of the things I'll just say, as I stated, and I'm going back to Quest Act, and this is something that 3 former players, including myself, co-founded, as I stated, as a 501c3, and our mission has been, athletes on a quest to lead a platform to provide authentic, positively lead in a transparent guidance to understand life experiences beyond the game. And obviously, with everything that's going on in the world, this is beyond the game, right? And so when you think about what we've been trying to do, first and foremost, I'd like to say this has been hard work for us, as we have really been impacting the community in ways that has been very well received. I say that to say, in this environment, COVID-19, there's a lot of people that are suffering in silence, a lot of people that are, in some cases, depressed, a lot of people that are, in some cases, suffering from mental, health. And so what we've been trying to target with these young people is, as I stated earlier, give them the knowledge, and the knowledge is power. And it's been impactful because not only have we had the school, and this is high school, but the parents and, they're, also just, people that they're staying with. Some people aren't staying with their parents. They're staying with their guardians. And so that empowerment has also been able to, lead them to watch what's happening on television. Because when they talk to us, they're asking us questions like, who do you know? And then when you talk to them about our friends and our colleagues that are in the NBA, I'm not sure if you guys missed, but the NBA, one of the things that they've done in this bubble, if you will, in Orlando, they actually stopped playing. They put a pause on the games. And guess what they asked for? They asked for the owners to step up and open the arenas. And so what you will find for voting season come November, there are several arenas, basketball arenas, that are going to be open for voters to come in to vote and use that opportunity so that those neighborhoods and those communities can actually be a part of that voting process. So I think, this is a time where I'm seeing our athletes use their power, use their platform, and demand that the owners get involved. They're basically saying, hey, we won't play unless you play. So if you get in the game, we'll get in the game. And I think that's very impactful, and definitely glad to be a part of that work in terms of doing what we can in the community through Quest Act.
That's power.
Awesome.
That's power. Well said. And Attorney Derek Humphreys, I know that you are directing some questions to our wonderful panel.
Thank you very much. You do it so well. So well. I'll try one more. Attorney Monique Edwards, what's your take on the question about how we utilize resources and to provide guidance, particularly to young people, on the significance of going to the polls. You have been a veteran and this for many, many years. And what have you learned, and what should others know about how to apply it?
Well, I think it's important that we recognize that young people are not foolish. They know who's real and who's Memorex. And so you can't start, yeah, I'm dating myself, right? You can't assume that just because you have a title or a position, they're gonna listen to you. What are you doing with your community prior to a time when you need them to mobilize? How are you helping them better their station in life? I think one of the things that we sometimes forget is I may live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I grew up in what is referred to as one of the river parishes, which is centrally located between Baton Rouge and the city of New Orleans, which is really the state of Louisiana. And so in the rural communities, where whatever you see in the urban corridor, it is magnified in the rural communities. And oftentimes I think national political leaders forget that there is a Black rural community throughout America. And they are hardworking people. They appreciate family. Family is probably at the center and the core of who they are. And when you appreciate that and move it, in spite of where you come in your station in life, you still want to have that common touch. So I am constantly having that common touch because my success is their success. So they feel that they're part of me. And as a consequence, when I'm talking about making sure that you have everything together for voting, I'm walking, I'm driving, I'm talking, answering questions, that has just as much of a value as a election protection effort. because if they don't feel committed to doing it, and if they don't see themselves there, they're not going to do it. So my efforts to get the vote out didn't just start earlier this year. It didn't start in 2015. It has been a consistency, because you have to allow people to feel comfortable with you, that that you mean them well, and that you have their best interests. So when you go, like now, they're paying attention, and they're telling me they're paying attention.
All right, now, we are sponsored by, at the bottom of the hour, we should note, the Black Congress on Health Law and Education, Black Congress on Health Law, Economics, and Education. We are so happy to have an extended family approach to organizing Black organizations all over this nation and many parts of the world to come together for such a time as this. It's critical that we bring our forces together in unity. And I'd like my sister, Attorney Dorothy Jackson, to say a word about the importance of us working together in unity, putting aside organization affiliation, and just coming together to get the vote out for 2020.
I think it's important that we always be unified as a family. And by family, I mean the Black family.
That's right.
Because if we're not unified, if we allow divisiveness to break us up because this organization wants all the attention, or that organization wants attention, or they want credit, we all get our credit when we all win.
That's right.
We only do that together. So that's one of the goals of Unity 9, to bring all of the men and women who have entered these organizations when they were in college, some freshmen and sophomores, but we all serve. And it's easier for me to put my $10 with your $10 and contribute $20 than dripping and grabbing little bits of money. So it makes a difference. And I think what we all have to realize is campaigns take manpower, boots on the ground, which is limited because of the pandemic. So we have to look for other ways. But it also takes togetherness. It doesn't make sense for 5 organizations to be trying to spread out across the country when we can be organized. All these organizations have chapters. There are chapters in Florida, chapters in Georgia, Arizona, not just all over this country, but all over the world. And we can't forget also that we have voters who live overseas. They have to get their votes in here on time.
Right.
So we have to have an organized and strategic plan. And these national campaigns have to recognize the wealth of resources they have in our communities, and we can work together.
That's well said. Peter Higginbotham, and you are working with the Divine Nine as a leader with Omega Psi Phi. What does that look like as we are in these final weeks before the general election?
Well, when our Grand Bosses issued our directive, it made it plain that we are also going to be partnering and doing whatever we can with the other Divine Nine fraternities and for all of the Divine Nine totally. It's not just us. And because of COVID, it's going to take a masterful effort in what we try to do to help people vote safely, vote on time, and also to be able to help their communities do the same thing. We've been asked, all of the chapters, both graduate and undergraduate, to have some members serve as poll watchers and to help people get to and from the polls, transportation-wise, and also to be available to help folks that may not be that familiar with how they are supposed to vote, how the type of machines that might be being used in their community, where their locations are. And that's a big deal this time, because there are states all over the place that had maybe a couple of hundred voting locations, and now they've been cut down to maybe just a few dozen voting locations. So it's one of the keys, especially these last 30 days, as we get closer and closer, is to know if your polling place is still open, what the hours of voting are going to be, how you're going to get there, are you registered, and doing all of those type of things that used to seem like, you used to just show up and sign your name or whatever and get your ballot and go vote. And now it appears that they're even trying to, do some trickery with that, because can you imagine talking about someone's signature and how it doesn't look the same or whatever? And when you think about it, your signature will change over the years. And if you bust a knuckle, sprain a finger, have carpal tunnel or whatever, break your wrist, you might be signing something differently than what you have on file.
That's
and
right.
It just looks like it's just another way for them to try to discourage, frustrate, and intimidate us from being able to vote. So we're trying to address all of those things and really push for people to get out there some kind of way, get that early vote in, get those absentee ballots, or make the sacrifice and be safe to be out there on election day.
All right now. And voter intimidation, voter harassment is the order of the day. And
Yes.
This is nothing new in this country. We are well aware of the kind of tricks and hostilities that are in order right now. I'd like Dr. Dennis Rogers to remind our people that this is not the first pandemic Black folks have had to deal with.
That's a great way to put it. Our arrival on these shores was a pandemic.
Better say it.
Of course, as we got through the enslavement process, that was a pandemic.
That's right.
And as we made advancements in Reconstruction, and we went through the nadir, the lowest racial relation points in our history, where Ida B. Wells, the spirit that you invoking, came into being, we've been under stress and duress since we've been here, and yet we thrive. We continue to rise like the phoenix. We continue to rise above this trauma that we've collectively experienced. And I think it's an attribute to the spirit of our people. And in the midst of the spirit of our people, regardless of the ecosystem and all of the elements trying to take advantage of our situation, we continue to be prosperous.
Yeah.
We continue, like the folks on this call, to put in the effort it takes to advance us. So I just like to make 3 quick points. And one of them is, since we have the NFL Players Association represented here, this notion that coaches put into all of us who are athletes that you play like you practice.
That's right.
And I remember when we were younger in schools, and we would actually, as students, vote in student government elections. We would have an opportunity to do a mock election of whoever the presidents were. Well, we know that so many of our students are sitting at home now with their parents, with their moms primarily, and this notion that they have an opportunity to practice voting. I encourage all our listeners to ask young people beginning today to vote on something. What are we going to eat for dinner tonight, etc. And then to relate that to the voting that will take place on November the 3rd. Okay. A second point is what Attorney Jackson said, and that is, when you think about all of our organizations, and we can call them by name, when you think of the NFL Players Association and where their chapters are, Omega Psi Phi and where their chapters are, KA Psi and where their chapters are, AKAs and where their chapters are, and you layer us across this nation, there's no place we're not.
That's right.
Everywhere. And when you add the churches to that, as Derek Humphreys asked the question about what we can do where we live in our local communities, that's where it all starts. All politics are local.
That's
So
right.
as we connect these dots in our local communities where all of our organizations are represented, there's no way that we can't continue to advance. It's the nature of life to advance itself, and we as an expression of life will do that in the midst of this current pandemic.
Well said. Well said. Attorney Derek Humphreys, one of the things we need to remember is that a lot of voting is taking place right now. There are persons who are casting their absentee ballot. They're voting by mail right now. So it's not just off in the future. We're talking about here and now.
I would pull in right now and refer to Attorney Monique Edwards. She is on to share with us some of the lessons, some of the real today, down to earth issues that you're dealing with that are really emblematic of what's going on across the country.
Well, voter suppression is real. In the 2000 election, when we had the dangling chads in Florida, I was living in Orlando. And I suspect that had the Gore campaign had a legal team in Orlando, Central Florida, he would have been the president, because there was some shenanigans in Orlando, but everything went to South Florida. And sometimes, it's hard for people to understand what's really going on. Yesterday, the chief judge of the Middle District of Louisiana, Judge Shelley Dick, had an impactful ruling, because when we first had the virus here in Louisiana, we had elections scheduled for February and March, and all of that was delayed. And so there was an emergency COVID plan that basically opened up early voting for a longer period of time, allowed increased numbers of people to qualify for absentee ballots. Well, it's worse now than it was then. And our legislature, which is majority one party, and the governor is of another party, decided they wanted to roll back those coronavirus changes. And so there was a coalition that came together and filed suit against the governor as well as the Secretary of State. And basically, I would say, I haven't digested the ruling, but she basically split the baby. The coalition wanted 14 days of early voting. She gave 10, and she rolled back and put in place the emergency protections that allowed more people to qualify for absentee ballots. Right now, both sides are determining whether or not they're going to file an appeal, which will go to the Fifth Circuit, which telling what kind of makeup of the panel you would get. So either side could end up in a worse position than what it is now. So I think that's what people are trying to determine. But in any case, I remind my young students that I work with within the sorority that we are descendants of people who survived the Middle Passage.
You better say it.
And so, you can't let people define who you're going to be.
That's right.
And so I say that this pandemic is happening because we needed a wake-up call. We needed a wake-up call that no matter how successful we are, no matter how accomplished we are, the color of our skin is always going to dictate some response from people. And so just because you tell me I can't, I'm going to show you that I can.
Come on
And
now.
so that is the attitude that we have to put with our young people, because they're looking for something. They see a lot. And so children are paying attention. Young people are paying attention. And yesterday when I was leaving campus, one of my students said to me, well, my friend said you are the hardest nice person I would ever meet. And I just sat back and said, now that's an interesting description, but that's about what it is, because, you know, the Bible tells us, spare the rod, spoil the child. And so I need my young, gifted, talented Black and brown babies to be the best. And so if I don't demand the best, they will not give the best.
Well said. I love that. I love that. That's a great line, and it's a high compliment.
And I will also say, I was sharing with Derek last night, after Katrina, that hurricane that forever changed the landscape, I went on a speaking tour talking about how that impacted, and with her sister Rita a couple of weeks later, impacted so much in Louisiana, and how so much of, 40% of the domestic seafood for this country comes from the shores of Louisiana. So I just want to put that. And so one of the things that is even more true now, that when the oppressed take on the values and actions of the oppressor, it is oppressive.
Come on now.
And so as we fight those who don't want us to realize our full potential and our rightful place in the country that we built.
That's right.
We have to be aware of that as well. So yes, we're gonna come together, but there was always the coon at the door.
My. As you say that, I'm reminded that we are very close right now to having H.R. 40, which was the reparations bill introduced by Congressman Conyers long time ago, in 1989, now being sponsored by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. That's on the precipice of being approved. Do you know we have more than 150 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives? That's significant. That's significant. Anybody that wants to know, will their vote make a difference? Do you want reparations? Do you want reparations? It's scheduled to be introduced in this month, and it may very well pass. This is the time many people have been fighting for and waiting for. So it's a wake-up call, as you say. I appreciate that very much. I want to ask Attorney Derek Humphreys to kind of give us a blueprint for how other BCHLE organizations can be a part of this movement, this national movement that is being orchestrated by your team. Teamwork is dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work, absolutely. And when we lead into that, I hear the experts who are on our panel today. I'm encouraged and I'm enthusiastic, because working as a team and establishing communication is critical. As Peter Higginbotham indicated earlier, working together, whether it's in Philadelphia or Detroit or Los Angeles, Baton Rouge, or maybe it's in Charlotte, or maybe in some St. Petersburg, Florida, that we all have chapters in those locations. And the more that we work together, and the more that we communicate with each other, the Divine Nine, for instance, just looking at the way in which we communicate to be focused on the one goal, and that is to get everybody breathing
Yes,
qualified to vote this year.
that's right.
There is no hill too high to climb to get African American voters to the polls. And of course, educating our folks about early mail-in voting. And, now it's going to start, I think, October 13th, or the ballots are going to go out for those who signed up. Well, how are we, and this is a question I'd like to get some feedback on, and that is, we have seniors, okay? Seniors, what are we doing to assist the seniors in the different cities who generally have been very consistent about voting on election day?
That's right.
I'd like to ask, what are we doing? We talked about the youth, and that's very, very important. And what are we doing to make certain that our seniors have their day?
Great question.
And if I might ask our national field director, Dr. Rogers.
All right.
That's a very good question, Derek. And as I search my mind for that, what I want to bring up is, for example, in the state of North Carolina, they've already issued out, if you want to request an absentee ballot. And these have been mailed, people have received them, and if they're interested in voting by absentee ballot, they can mail them in. And there is a bit of confusion about whether or not these ballots will be counted effectively. And we know that there's been voter purging taking place. So this notion of making sure that accurate information reaches our elders. The church is traditionally the gathering spot every Sunday for our elders. And currently, elders are using the technology. They're still using the telephone, calling their best friends in the middle of the week and to check in on them on Sunday. So I think it's important that the communication continues amongst the elders and amongst those of us who have elders in our lives, our grandparents, our parents that are still alive, that we carry this message on to them. And in an organized manner, there are elders being engaged in phone banking. I've heard personally this telephoning, this machine, robocalling that's taking place now, but there's nothing like the human voice.
That's right.
And the connectivity from the human voice.
That's
so
right.
I'm seeing that the need to continue to communicate with our elders from whatever position we're in, the same as we need to communicate with our young people, is crucial at this time. And who's better positioned than the organizations represented on this Zoom call to actually reach the elders again in every hamlet and every city and every community in which we exist.
I love that. So we're not just focusing on getting the young people or millennials out, but also making sure that our elders have access, have transportation, have motivation, because there absolutely is a voter suppression initiative going on all over this country, and we ought to be responsive to that. Want to give each of our roundtable panelists who have been outstanding today an opportunity to give a final word of challenge to our audience, this national edition of Wake Up Detroit. And let's start with Dorothy Jackson.
Thank you for that, Reverend Watson. I think that it's very important as part of our education of the voters when we get them out to point out that, yes, there is a presidential election. Yes, we want to change in a residency at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but we have to train people to vote the entire ballot. We talk about overzealous prosecutors, sentencing reforms. A lot of these are local down ballot elections. So I just want to reiterate that people educate the voters once we get them motivated to come out to vote for every seat on that ballot.
Well said. Yeah, including like school board, because there's controversy all over the nation about whether or not students should go back to school. So it's school board members, those who are policymakers locally, make a difference. Vote the entire ballot. Well said, Dorothy Jackson. How about bringing in Brother Robertson?
Yeah, I just like to close with this. Our motto, and we always say with Quest Act, choose to win.
Hey,
we thrive on that, and we break it down into 4 quarters as we're providing our just our platform to the community, and we go conflict resolution, health and wellness, financial literacy, civic engagement. And we think about the engagement that we talked about. I was just at the question that was asked about our seniors. There's something in my heart about kids and seniors. That's just, my grandmother was my role model.
come on now.
And she taught me everything about character and integrity. And we have to, it's our duty to take care of our seniors. I'm sorry, I'm kind of digressing, but I just want to make sure we all know out there, take care of our seniors. I did hear, and I don't know if this is just what I heard. I know that when they were talking about, and when the coronavirus first rolled out, they were giving specific hours for seniors to go and shop. I heard, and I don't know if this is the case, but they're talking about trying to provide specific hours for our seniors to go vote if they want to vote face to face. So if you're out there and you are accountable to a senior, make sure that they are safe, take care of them. I just want to say that. And in closing, again, choose to win. The great thing about the game of football, guys, is that I played on offense. And it's something amazing about 11 guys coming in a huddle. We call a play, we have to break that huddle, and we have to execute that play. And that's just what we're doing now. We're calling a play. We're asking everyone to break that huddle, and we're trying to move the ball ultimately so that we can get a touchdown. So get out there and vote. Let your voices be heard, and thank you for your time.
I love that. Choose to win. Love it. And blessings to you, to your the great legacy of your grandmother. I love that. Attorney Edwards.
Well, what I will say is everybody has a value. So there's election protection, there are poll watchers, and while I've been on this call, I reached out to the Secretary of State to see whether or not they needed some poll workers, who are there before the polls open and are there after the polls close. And he said yes. And so I printed out my application. I will be turning that in today. And I'm going to be a poll worker because I think it's just as important to have somebody inside of that voting place that's not scared or intimidated by people.
What you say, practicing what you preach. I love it. That's what I'm talking about. And Peter Higginbotham.
Well, vote. And when you can't do anything else, vote. Dorothy is taking a little bit of my thunder because I was going to talk about we need to vote the entire down ballot.
That's right.
We need to take the time to find out who's running for what. Don't go to, this is a presidential election and you're going to know who's running for president and vice president, but don't go to the polls and have a ballot where you're just guessing at the rest of the people for the other positions. Your judges, your courts of the clerk, your dog catcher, whatever you're voting for, know who you should be voting for and what their platform is and get behind them to vote. I'd just like to say that it's a pleasure meeting all of you all virtually, and maybe one day we can meet in person after this COVID is over.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Dennis Rogers.
I was thinking about the notion of the role of the Black media, both talk shows, Zoom shows like we have here, and Black newspapers. The NNPA Association traditionally has voter guides listed in the Black newspapers. And I encourage everyone, I know a lot of people are going digital now, to pick up the Black newspaper and to look for information in these next 45 days that leads up to the election day.
Thank you so much, Attorney Derek A. Humphreys, and your role as a sponsor of these national editions of Wake Up World and Wake Up Detroit has been magnificent, and we're going to look forward to the future broadcast. And we're so grateful for your role as the leader of the Black Congress on Health Law, Economics, and Education. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And your final remarks.
My final remark would be that all the panelists carry the message and stand up in somebody's church on Sunday. Stand up in somebody's church, your church, but somebody's church, to say and deliver the message that you have delivered today. Go out and each Sunday until and beyond November 3rd, go stand up in somebody's church and deliver the message that you delivered today. And I thank you so very much. And I thank you also, Joanne Watson, the Honorable Joanne Watson. I thank you for hosting this panel, and we'll continue. It's a partnership, and it's a partnership that was created when God winked. And I think,
My. We thank God for the Black Congress on Health Law, Economics, and Education, all the wonderful panelists who've shared with us today brilliantly and boldly, and best of all, they're Black. I love it. We thank God for WHPR. Thank you, R.J. Watkins. Thank you, Maxine Willis. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody who's been a part of this broadcast. Thank you for those who are watching via Zoom and Facebook. We give God all the praise. Only God is worthy to be praised. And as we get ready for closing, we want to remind you that the wake-up call needs to be heard around the world. Wake up, world, and wake up, Detroit.
wake up, Detroit.
Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson, and this is your wake-up call.
When a brown girl child is born, the earth shifts. The sun is at half-mast. The moon waits for her first cry. The ancestors set the table. The flowers turn red as blood. This is your land, continent daughter, with tree trunk legs and branches for arms. This is your soil, black and fertile as your eyes facing an apartheid, Jim Crow, current, past memory. Some of us begin the removal of shackles at birth. We grow into the armor of struggle quickly. We brew courage in our tea, blend bravery into our Sunday dinners. Joanne Watson, you understand nation building is not a part-time job. This dedicated life is sometimes lonely, a vulnerable choice, but it is the only way you know how to operate. You are wired for the movement. In your black women bones, even when tired, still fighting, still organizing, still singing morning spirituals. You are born to lead. Even in your own family, the eldest of 10 children born to Jefferson and Lestine, you made Damon, Nefertari, Stephen, Maya, her children always